Hey everyone, welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's February 15th, 2023. My name's Eric Osterman and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. Cloud Posse is a DevOps accelerator. We help companies conquer AWS using our proven blueprints for Terraform. If you're starting from scratch or just not happy with what you have today, then you should head to cloudposse.com/quiz and book a session with me. I'll show you exactly what you can have today and we deliver it in record time. For those of you new to the call, the format's very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So if you're curious about Cloud Posse or any of our open source tools or modules, this is a great place to ask. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. Our call today is recorded and we'll automatically post a recording of this session to our YouTube channel. So if you enjoy the content and want to support what we do over here, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse to subscribe. So with that said, let's jump into some light announcements that I have for this week. So one is something I snagged from the weekly TF newsletter, and it stood out to me because this was exactly what Cloud Posse was doing for like 4 years, 4 to 5 years, from 2015 to about 2020 or mid 2019. And we thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. But we've since learned that you should definitely not do this. And I wanted to address this head on. So first of all, what is this? So Terraform, obviously, for most of you are familiar, is a command line tool that you interact with on the command line to bring up infrastructure. And direnv is a separate tool. It's a extension, so to say. You install it in your bash profile or in your ZRC, your Z shell profile, and it adds some superpowers to your shell. It's almost like a framework in some ways that extends your shell to be able to have built-in functions that are always loaded in your session. So when I first came across direnv, I thought it was amazing because it was in an era that predated the whole movement of GitOps. And it was cool because we could standardize the way we interacted with the shell so that all the developers on the team could have the same superpowers, the same little shortcuts and commands. It was also a great way to, for example, load in environment variables, and then you could consume those environment variables from Terraform, for example, with tfvars variables. I think there's an example maybe in here. Exactly. So you can also set all of these command line arguments that you pass to a Terraform plan just by setting an environment variable. So what we liked about this at the time was it felt like we were using vanilla Terraform and only setting some things up in our shell. And we didn't need wrappers like TerraGrunt or Atmos or all the plethora of other tools that help automate your workflows with Terraform. But then we ran into this wall, this problem. It really just assumes that you're doing all this Terraform work on the command line, which is the one thing you're not supposed to be optimizing for. You're supposed to be optimizing for unattended, automated workflows in your GitHub action workflows or in your CICD systems or in your Terraform cloud and so forth. So we accomplished that. So what we did is we were using Atlantis at the time, and we hacked the hell out of it to be able to run direnv inside of Atlantis so we could get all that functionality. But that's where the madness had to stop. The other problem with this approach is you're relying on environment variables. And what we learned was you get this sprawl of environment variables everywhere, and you have no idea what's actually using them or not. And the other thing, if I recall correctly, is like with your tfvars, is if they're set as environment variables, Terraform doesn't give you a warning if that variable wasn't defined. So worse yet, you're defining all these settings, and you think they should be doing something, but if you look at the code, they're actually not doing anything because that variable was never defined. So it's easy to make some human mistakes there. So that's my rant. I think that you should avoid using direnv with Terraform or any equivalents. Any questions on that? All right. Next announcement was another Terraform Terraform automation collaboration software alternative. There's Terraform Cloud, Scalar, Spacelift, N0, Terra Team. Those are the commercial offerings that I know off the top of my head. Now, here's another one. It's called Terrahaxs. And I guess trying to be more competitive on pricing. So check them out. Here's an announcement that's near and dear to my heart. We tried doing this a long time ago. I don't know if our requests just fell on deaf ears, or the process has improved. It worked a lot easier this time. Went really very quickly. We were able to become a verified creator by becoming a GitHub partner. So if you've been wanting to use some of the Cloud Posse GitHub actions, but due to like corporate policy, couldn't because we weren't a verified creator of actions, now you can. So what we are doing for GitHub actions is what we have done for Terraform. We are creating opinionated, bundled actions that do one thing very well, but we're not reinventing the wheel. For the most part, all of our actions wrap other of the best actions that we have found out there, but implement some specific functionality in a way that we reuse amongst our customers. So do check that out if you're interested. And last, I remember when every Terraform release, I was so excited and I couldn't wait to read the release notes and see all the goodness. And to be honest, for the last few releases, almost since 1.0 or 1.1, I've become totally disinterested in them. But actually, there were a few things that stood out in these release notes that I'm excited about, at least for us and the things that we do. So one of those was that the Terraform workspace command, which we use a lot, now supports a or create feature flag, so that you don't have to do shell conditionals to select or create if it doesn't exist. The other subtle reason. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, can I just make one quick comment? We just actually released basically this feature inside of Atmos this week, not knowing that they were about to do it at the the Terraform level. So because we were getting in CI, it was writing the standard out every time standard error, I should say, every time you tried to select a workspace that didn't exist, and then we would immediately create it, and it would show up as like a failure. So we just did some work. Now we can just use this flag.
Yeah, exactly. On newer versions of Terraform, which will be nice. Yeah, I forget where I saw that thread, so I tried to post this announcement there, but I didn't find it in time. So the other subtle reason why I like this change is there's been so much FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt around using workspaces, because somebody posted a blog at some point on Medium that said using Terraform workspaces are evil and you shouldn't do it. And then that through constant self-referencing of that one post and everything else, now the industry, it feels like, at least via Medium, says do not use workspaces. And yet we use workspaces extensively, managing thousands of Terraform root modules and environments using workspaces, and have no problems with them. They're wonderful. It's built in natively into the tool. No hacking environment variables to figure out where you store your state. Just use workspaces. So I was concerned that the way things were going, that maybe one of these announcements is going to say Terraform workspaces are going away. But this to me says they're definitely not. And they're even investing in them ever so slightly with this nice little usability or DX improvement. Anybody have questions on this or the the FUD on workspaces?
Yeah, I was just going to say this saves me a couple lines of code. I have a wrapper for selecting a Terraform workspace, and if the workspace isn't there, then I just pipe it to Terraform workspace new, and it creates the workspace.
Yeah,
for me.
exactly.
So yeah, it's just a nice little, I guess, one-liner thing to eliminate.
Yeah. If you happen to be using Atmos, it does that automatically now in the latest version, irrespective of your Terraform version. And then there's a flag to disable it if you don't want that behavior.
Yep. And then the other thing that just stood out to me was just that, well, YAML is now officially going to be supported in Terraform. And well, we use YAML for a lot in everything we do as a great way to define configuration. There's a lot of things you can do in YAML that you can't do in HCL or TF-var files. So I like that. Any other parts of Terraform 1.4 that stand out? All right. Terraform data, a new built-in managed resource type, which can replace the null resource and you can store any type of data. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what when they can store data of any type, because this has been one of the big issues with Terraform is you can't store any large any binary objects of any kind. And I believe even limited in terms of the blob size of like a base 64 encoded string. So, all right. So I think that's all the announcements I had. It was pretty quiet. Well, not quiet, but uninteresting on the AWS news front. I didn't see any standout announcements over the past week there. Programmatically manage enabled and disabled opt-in. Oh, to AWS regions on accounts. I wonder, does this also include the 17 default regions or only the new regions?
According to the
regions.
yeah, I was going to say, according to the headline, I would suspect it doesn't include the other regions. Too many things are hard coded, assuming that those regions exist and are enabled.
Yeah. Well, this is a great announcement. Hopefully Terraform for support for that will be quickly forthcoming and we can update our modules for that. Matt asks, how do you set separate variables for your workspaces? Great question. So what we do is, how you say, the short answer is we use different TF-var files for each environment. So one var file for production, one var file for dev. The much more long-winded answer, which is basically go to this website, atmos.tools, and this is how we manage our configurations for massive environments. Literally thousands of Terraform root modules can be managed this way. And the specific thing we use are these things called stacks, which define your configuration in a hierarchical way. If you're familiar with like customize in Kubernetes land, where you can layer configuration, we call those imports, and you define your configuration in these YAML files, and we import them and deep merge them. So it's a very dry way to manage configuration. Here.
It's also related to direnv topic that we discussed previously. So we also were trying to use direnv for Terraform variables back in like 2016 or 17. And one of the main issues you get is you don't have variable types, or especially variable structures like lists or maps or something in environment variables. You simply cannot do that. So
I think you can actually, you have to JSON encode them. But
you
JSON encoded environment variables defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah. So whenever you like, it's a really it's a bad way to go. If you try to look that way, just like really try something different. Don't waste your time. We also, you can make it work eventually, which we did, but it's really a lot of pain and it doesn't work eventually. So eventually, one of the main, like most likely, if you look at direnv, the problem that you really have is that you're missing a variable tree. You mean it's probably that you want to have a tree of variables where on every next level you specify, like you specify more specific variables. For example, you go AWS, then region specific, then something like product specific or feature specific. And then you go deep merge them. So this is probably what you try and do with direnv. You just build the structures of directories and put the next specific variables on the next level of directories. So what the proper way to do this is, one of the proper way to do this is use Atmos, where you have a YAML tree instead of directory tree, where you have all of us structures available like lists, maps, you have deep merge built in, you have imports, templates, and all of that stuff. So, and then you basically don't need direnv. There are alternative frameworks to that, which use like HCL, for example, instead of YAML, but still, like, you have to identify why are you getting into direnv at all, and it's probably that you need a tree of variables, and like Atmos does exactly that.
Yeah, so here's an example, like for ACM, we define the variables for ACM. So these are just Terraform vars. So is it enabled? How are we doing domain validation and so forth? And this is the baseline configuration then for ACM. And then at any time we want to use ACM, we can just import that. For example, in we're in the US East 2 region of the staging account and the platform organizational unit of the Cloud Posse live infrastructure organization. And here we import all those variables, and then we override, we layer on top of that, kind of overlay the following. So we set the domain name to US UE2 for US East 2 staging plat cloudposse.org.
So in particular, how do we set this, the original question, how do we set these separate variables for your workspaces? So what Atmos really do is that it renders all of this stuff, YAML stuff, completely separately from Terraform. And the end result of it is just a JSON file of resulting variables that you have, given the context that you work on at the moment, like your current region, your current environment, or whatever layers you have. So Atmos just gives you that JSON of fully merged and rendered variables. And then the JSON is placed into a temporary directory with the Terraform code, and you just run Terraform with local JSON variables files, which you can really open in your editor and see your resulting like a whole thing that you work on at the moment. So it's there is no magic in Terraform here. We just build up on top of it and feeds.
So we provide a command that generates it explicitly if you want to look at it, but if you otherwise just call Atmos Terraform plan or Atmos Terraform apply, it just happens automatically along the way. But this is the secret sauce. This is why we can say with a straight face that there's zero vendor lock-in if you use Atmos, because with Atmos, you can run one command and eject from the framework and just have var files and call Terraform, vanilla Terraform directly. You never need to touch the tool again if you wanted to. All right.
So before you go on, Oh, sorry, I was just going to interject really quickly. I took a look at the data, the new data source type, and I looked at the code, and it looks like the max length it's getting marshaled to a UTF-8 encoded string under the hood. So I think the max data size would be whatever the number of bytes long your string is when it's marshaled to UTF-8 on your platform. So the answer would be different on 32-bit and 64-bit platforms.
I plead ignorance. Why is there's a string length limit to UTF encoded 8?
It tracks the length of the string as a large integer. So if the length exceeds the size of the variable where they're trying to track the length of the string, it will kernel dump basically.
Okay.
There's a variable that tracks the length of every property in state, essentially. They must be using it for something like hashing functions or something along the line. I don't know exactly what it is, but I just looked at the code and that's what it looks like to me. So don't take that as Bible. That was my quick 5-minute reading of the code. I think that's what the limit is, but that's pretty large. It's like into the gigabytes kind of thing.
So Matt has posted a message in the chat related to what we were just talking about, config management. He says he came across a tool called microconfig.io. Sounds like Atmos will do some of that as well. So let me see here. I'm not directly familiar with microconfig, but from what I can tell, it does feel vaguely familiar, vaguely similar. And that's great. What I love doing is when we look at Atmos tools, we go down here to reference and alternatives. I should add this microconfig here. What we've tried to do is distill a lot of the best features and functionality from the tools out there that we've been using. Atmos, it's almost like when you look at a jazz musician, you can see their influences and other artists that they liked, or I mean, it doesn't have to be jazz, any musicians at all. Well, if you look at Atmos, you could tell probably these guys must have used Helm file for a while. These guys probably used Kubernetes. These guys probably have seen GoTask. I mean, we very much were inspired by App Builder by Coria. We took almost the same schema for defining workflows and subcommands. So, and most recently we started implementing some of the templating capabilities that you get from Home Assistant and borrowing on that syntax and introducing that into Atmos. So Atmos has really become this
Did Eric just drop or when I'm mute?
I think we lost Eric.
Oops, looks like I was disconnected there. Sorry, didn't realize that. What was the last thing you guys heard?
Atmos has become.
I think you were
Atmos
talking about the Home Assistant templating portion.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you heard almost everything. Yeah. So on this microconfig, what has anyone seen this before or checked it out? What stands out?
I don't think you're sharing your screen anymore.
Oh, thank you.
This is Matt. I had just seen it. It kind of had some of the hierarchical config, management that I was sort of looking. We have some of our own kind of internal tools that do some of this, but config management is probably one of our bigger issues.
Yeah, I like this. What I like about it is this seems like a schema-less version of what we do. so you can define your own schemas. We have a very opinionated schema based on how we work. But this therefore seems cool. I like that you can do mathematical expressions. That's kind of cool. Recently, we added forms of interpolation like this, but not with pipelining functions. And what is the, let's see here, what language is this in?
It's in Java,
Java.
but I think
Oh,
you can
okay.
export to different forms. What I didn't really see was much detail on how they handle secrets. And I guess that might be my next question to you, is handling secrets and having secrets potentially in state. And
Well,
is it inevitable?
No, well, I would say it's a lot less inevitable these days. From our experience, the only place that we consistently would have secrets was with RDS, and now Amazon has made that no longer a thing. I forget what the feature was, but I guess Amazon can now, I believe Amazon can now generate the password and write it to SSM. I think that's how it works now, if you enable that feature. So if we're talking like anything else, if we're talking like secrets on Kubernetes, we've been gravitating towards things like external secrets operator or SOP secrets. Both keep the secrets out of your state. So what are some of the use cases you have secrets in Terraform that you need?
So yeah, we store values and use them and SSM properties, but you know, it might be client IDs and secrets for OAuth and Cognito, or service applications or external services that we use.
Gotcha.
Configuration
Yeah.
for like Datadog and stuff, and then how does that get kind of propagated around to the systems? You know, we have Puppet stuff as well. So we have this a multi-tiered set of configuration, not one real source of truth. We have a lot of legacy stuff too.
Yeah, Datadog is like, those kinds of integration secrets, that makes sense. Datadog would be, in our situation, I believe we get around it by being able to use SSM parameters, and then the external secrets operator to mount those secrets into the cluster. But if you know, if you're deploying any other secrets like that, I would get into the Terraform state, and don't have a silver bullet for that. I don't believe Microconfig would solve that, or Atmos, or pretty much any command line tool. It's the weakest link, which is Terraform.
Yeah, thanks. I hadn't heard of that external secrets operator.
Yeah, and then the other one is SOP's secrets operator, the one by Isinder, and this is the one we've been using. This is really nice because you can use SOPs combined with a KMS key, and since it's KMS, you can use IAM. So now you have this highly fault-tolerant infrastructure to manage encrypted secrets that get committed to your version control. And they are not totally opaque. You can it can intelligently only encrypt the values. So this is great from a PR review process, because you can still inspect the file for overall correctness, or see that, you know, certain secrets changed, but the values themselves are encrypted. The downside with this is rotation of secrets is a pain, and basically forced outages for secrets rotation, unless you build in your application some way to handle multiple, you know, logins simultaneously, which no one does.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking of that same thing. How do you rotate a user? I've been trying to think with like you know, databases. What's the configuration you need for a source? You need the URL, the endpoint, you need the username, the password, the schema, etc. And if you wanted to rotate, if you had your config, pass on boot a different user to use. So the software doesn't know the difference, but the config would have the change difference. So all you do is just blue, green, or slowly reboot your instances. They get the new password, username and password. Then once everything's rotated out, you can then remove that old user.
Yeah.
So again, having that separation of configuration from code, etc.
Which I think that works and scalable if you have like one use case for that. If you had like 25, 30, 40, whatever, I think then it gets pretty tedious.
Yeah, and you have to be really careful about, you have to have 2 sets of secrets live for the entire life cycle, being able to rotate through your reboots, which might happen in multiple change windows across like multiple weeks or things, or there's crazy scenarios depending on where you're at.
Also, with this, both of this SOAP secret separator and external secrets, and there's like a bunch of more. Like any secret separator for Kubernetes, it will most likely render the result of it will be a regular Kubernetes secret. And depending on a regulatory environment that you work on, it might be not sufficient for you because there is no way to encrypt these secrets natively in a Kubernetes API. They will be just plain text or base64 stored in
Well, that's not true.
You can store it encrypted and then use KMS to decrypt it within your application. Basically, the value that gets stored in the secret store.
Yeah. You're right. This is for SOPs. Yeah, that works, but not for external secrets. But then, what solves this problem?
Kubernetes EKS supports envelope encryption.
Yep.
So secrets in Kubernetes are encrypted if you enable that on EKS at least.
Oh, okay, I totally missed that. But what solves this and what also solves the rotation is when you use Vault operator for HashiCorp Vault for Kubernetes, and then it has both. It doesn't store secrets in the Kubernetes API at all. There is an option to render secret to in-memory volume mounted to your pod, and then you just basically read it from a file system or from a socket or from somewhere, so that it doesn't it omits all of that chain. And the second thing that they support is they can send you signals to your application when a secret material has changed. So rotation becomes, if you handle that signal in your code, then rotation becomes easier. You just update the secret and then it will signal you, and then you refresh your connection or whatever. So, but Vault itself brings complexity because it's a whole thing to manage. But there are some, it's really a mature project.
All right. Sorry, guys. Don't eat your peaches during a presentation. Any other questions we can answer?
Eric, there's a question in the chat.
Okay, I have a little design problem managing configs. Background, we manage all of our configs with Helm using Kubernetes config maps. The problem is when we create a new release, anytime we want to update an environment variable, and this is not efficient. Is there a way to change or update an environment variable without creating a new release? And how can we do that? So you mean specifically a new Helm release, such that like if you listed all your releases, every time a variable changed, it created a new release, and that's what you don't want?
Yes, absolutely. It creates a new release anytime we need to change maybe just a single variable. Maybe there's a vendor key that changed and we need to change that. So we sort of create a new release for the whole infra. So that's the problem.
So then I think you are a perfect candidate for the other thing we were talking about. So long as you are in control of the Helm charts themselves, What you want is external secrets operator. And then you're basically, I believe this can write config maps as well as secrets. And if you combine external secrets together with reloader for Kubernetes, which is by Staccator. So reloader is one operator. So what reloader will do is reloader is looking at annotations, and you add these annotations on your deployments. And if that annotation is present and the dependent secret changes or the dependent config map changes, it will trigger a new deployment to happen. And this happens all outside of Helm. So then you can update your secrets and everything in SSM. It also supports like a dozen different secret stores. So you can pretty much store your secrets, in most mainstream places. Oops, I'm in the wrong document here.
There are a few solutions out there. That is the one that you use in Cloud Posse, like internally.
Yeah, this is the one we use all the time, is external secrets combined with reloader.
Reloader, yeah.
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 Okay.
And yeah.
But when you use this pattern, also wait on what are the trade-offs? Because even initially Kubernetes was designed to have atomic releases and kind of different release strategies between them. So you have like 2 atomic releases of 2 versions. For example, the difference between them is not only can be not only a software version, but also a configuration change. Like it can be same software, but different configuration, which makes software behaves differently. So these are the 2 separate releases, and you can have a canary or blue-green or whatever strategy between to swap between them using arg-cd or native Kubernetes API or whatever. So when you start to use something like dynamic approach like this, you're losing this capability of canary or quick rollback or blue-green with Kubernetes. So if perhaps it's worth to split out some of the frequently changing config parts in some, even like store them in DynamoDB and read from there, something like this, and still stick to that static atomic releases.
So what is the thing you're trying to optimize by not using Helm releases?
Yeah, is it like performance? Is it too long config maps, or is it just the long, like too long to wait for it to apply or something?
No, just basically short secrets. Let's say a vendor changed one of the API keys and you need to, update that immediately, right? So you go through the dev environment, the staging, and the production.
Oh, okay. Too slow. Basically speeding up the speed at which you can rotate, surgically update a secret in any environment.
Okay.
Yeah, so then I think this is the right approach then for you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions we can help answer? I don't see any more in the.
What about my question?
Oh, didn't we answer yours, Omar?
Maybe I missed it. Sorry, guys.
Oh man, yeah. Yours is front and center on my screen, and yet I skipped it. So sorry about that, Omar. Thank you. Yeah, so what tools are available out there to visualize Terraform, from the Terraform code to diagrams, etc.? Not only a graph tool, but a real presentable diagrams. And I wish I knew the answer. There was a tool relatively recently. I can't remember what it's called. I know
Something starts with the B, but right, but it needs you just put some blocks and produce the code for you. But basically, I want to I found a tool called Blue. Let me see the tool names, but it's so early stage. Blue history. Sorry, let me look. Plan. What was the tool name? Plurality.
No, that's that pure pluralith. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried that one. It is very early stages. It is
Okay.
literally put my secret, Terraform secret, the license, SSL private keys and etc. into the cloud, which my Git leaks found. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very early stages.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool idea, a cool project. I don't know how great I feel about it being a SaaS service. Something like this should actually just be supported in the Terraform core probably, but the cheap answer is use Terraform Graph, but you'll get some very not helpful diagrams by comparison. And I think this was trying to solve that, make them prettier.
Okay.
Yeah. So has anybody come across anything better than Pluralith? And Pluralith not being the best yet?
I can only say that this is a need.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another side to this. I do think it's great to have something like this as an architect to accelerate the rate at which I produce diagrams, but there's no substitute at this time for a human editorial process on those diagrams, because sometimes you want to show other things in a diagram, or you want to emphasize some things and not others, and there can be too much detail that is noise or distraction to what you really want to communicate with a given architecture. So yeah, it's
So my approach to it has been, I take the output of Terraform Graph, I delete 80% of it and edit the rest.
Makes sense.
Because most people don't care about, security groups or things like that on that kind of a diagram, right?
So who was it? Max Lober pointed out that Brainboard does something similar.
Yeah, Brainboard is basically the adverse of it. Yeah, I was thinking about it. So basically, you design your infrastructure with the building blocks there, and then it generates the Terraform code for you.
Oh, okay, it's in reverse.
Yeah, it's the reverse, and it will not be embraced for pure DevOps engineers, because we need to have the control on that one.
Yeah, but
So,
it's both. They do import and they do export. So
okay, let me try that. Maybe I missed some parts.
but I think Inframap was the original one. This was solved like 2 years ago, at least, as I remember. I think Inframap was the, yeah, it looks like this is the original one. It just generates SVG locally, right?
What was the name of the tool? Sorry.
Inframap.
Yeah,
And
You
I'll
write
post it
down
here
the
in-
office hours chat Slack. So
Yeah, and here it comes.
Do you know, Eric, do you know where we are? We've been discussing this for Atmos, some kind of graph tools for Atmos.
Yeah.
Visualizing like raw Terraform might be not really useful, because you have lots of these auxiliary resources like security group rules or whatever. If we visualize Terraform modules on the other side, they have pretty
Inframap.
like more readable properties, I would say. Like they're more like readable size of block.
Yeah.
That might be.
Yeah, I'm glad they added this example here, because the reality is when you do any type of graphing of real infrastructure and not examples made to demonstrate how cool your tool is, this is what they look like.
And this is a simple one in comparison to the ones I've seen.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So this is kind of like,
That's the
oh,
graph.
okay. Yeah, okay.
You don't think this is useful?
So
Yeah.
you will end up just drawing your module structures of your modules yourself manually, because like modules represent something meaningful, not particular resources. There's just thousands of resources. You can draw them all. When you draw something higher level like modules, then it will make sense. But I don't currently, I'm not aware of anything that can draw modules because those are abstract.
So I misinterpreted this a little bit. I was just skimming here. So this was actually, if you didn't use this tool, that diagram I just showed you is what you would get. If you did use this tool, you'll get something a little bit more meaningful like this, but I wonder how much reduction or how much loss of information there is.
But that's exactly what I used to do. I used to remove a lot of information to make it understandable.
Yeah. And I guess that's what this is doing then. It's letting you like, disable the connections and then generate it.
No, it's basically uses the Terraform graph. Yeah.
So another crazy idea is, what if we feed the source code or the Terraform graph to ChatGPT and have it give us something meaningful?
I wouldn't put it past it.
Hopefully you're okay with your secrets being on ChatGPT and learned for future things.
I'm certainly okay with taking one of these public modules that's out there and sticking it in ChatGPT to see what it can even do.
Yeah. All right. Your homework assignment for next week, Ralph.
I mean, if we're going to do that, you got to do mid-journey so it can actually create like real nice icons of, the things that you want it to be and all those things.
Maybe I can get ChatGPT to explain Cloud Posse to me finally.
Oh, I couldn't hear. What was that?
Maybe I can get ChatGPT to explain to me how Cloud Posse works, how those modules,
You could try that too. It's kind of funny. I did ask ChatGPT how to use Atmos to run some commands, but it seemed like it was on outdated documentation.
Oh, maybe you
Believe
can
it or
try
not,
again with
it had
Bing.
it.
You might try with Bing.
So Jeremy has posted like a few weeks ago in a journal chat, there is indexer that you put on your repo or whatever website for ChatGPT.
Oh, really?
And yeah, because they will refresh the database eventually, they will index the internet again. And if you want to be represented better in ChatGPT brain, then you put an indexer.
There is a ChatGPT 4.
Next?
Yeah, sure.
So if you want the latest, there's ChatGPT 4 and there's Bing.
Yeah, I applied for the Bing waitlist. It's not available yet, though, is it? GA?
I have not been able to get on it.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I have access, but my account didn't get approved.
I don't understand. You have access?
Someone obviously shared their account with me, so I could try it out. So that's all.
Okay.
The old password sharing.
Yeah. How was it, Matt?
I actually really liked the in-context search pieces of it. I thought that was useful. As far as accuracy around all the other stuff, I tried. It didn't particularly look like a giant leap to me. It seemed pretty close to ChatGPT 3, but I only played with it for a couple of hours on my friend's account.
So my understanding is that Bing has the latest internet.
It's basically ChatGPT. They've enhanced the Bing search engine with ChatGPT. So where actual ChatGPT is a static data set from, they keep pushing up the date when it's from. It's actually like they rewrote basically the AI pieces into the live Bing, web engine if you're opted into it. So when you search, you actually see like ChatGPT answers on the right-hand side and stuff that are in context of what you're searching, or even on the page that you're on, you can ask it questions about that and it will give you answers based on the page you're on.
I've heard that the Bing search database is a much smaller database than the Google database by like a very big multiple. I'm not sure exactly how much, but I assume they didn't increase the database. They've just thrown ChatGPT on top of that database, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. But we don't have any independent third-party verification of data set sizes in any of these things, because those are proprietary company secrets. So
Yeah.
who knows?
At the end of the day, I don't think I would be able to tell what the difference is between doing a search on Bing versus Google. I guess we'll have to wait for Google Bard to come out as well.
Yeah.
Well, Google's had certain things on their website for a while that are AI generated, where it just kind of distills the answer for you. A famous question was, is it okay to boil a baby? And Google said yes.
I wasn't across that one.
So
No one specified the species of the baby, because if you're talking about like a chicken, we certainly consider that acceptable.
So the reason why Google said yes is because the common question is it okay to boil a baby bottle?
No.
But then if you leave the bottle part out, it just kind of assumes that it's there, but it's, you know.
Obviously, their NER classifier needed to be retrained on difference between baby and baby bottle.
Yeah. There was an interesting write-up by someone at Wolfram on how ChatGPT works.
yeah, I would just try to get that today. It's really a long read, but
It's a long read. We need ChatGPT to summarize it for you.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? We got another few minutes here before we got to wrap things up.
Will you ever support Azure?
I don't think Cloud Posse specifically is going to build a competency on Azure or GCP at this time. The issue is in terms of building a competency, if there's 200 plus Terraform modules needed to be successful on AWS, you double or triple that for every major infrastructure platform out there.
Yeah, but the second and the third one should be easier because you've already worked out all of the questions, right?
Oh yeah, but it's just a practical number. Like if we.
Well, I also wouldn't necessarily say that the providers and the way they're implemented are significantly different in how you deal with things in like Google versus AWS or Azure versus AWS.
You might be able to train. You might be able to train an AI to do that work for you.
That's maybe going to be the more practical route. My point right now is that we have 500 repositories at Cloud Posse, and we're a relatively small company. And let's say half of those are Terraform. And then let's say we wanted to add, so that's 250 modules. And then we wanted to add, GCP and Azure, and just, back of the napkin calculation, we're up to 750 repositories as a small company that needs to try and maintain all of these things. We're going to need some financial support to tackle that many modules, and also just have competency on such a vast surface area. It's difficult. So by and large, everything that we do is not restricted to AWS. It's just, you could say our examples are all for AWS.
Of course, you know what people are going to ask for once you do Azure and GCP. They're going to ask for Oracle and OVH.
Alibaba.
Alibaba, yes. Alibaba would be a good target. That's huge.
Yeah.
Also in China, which is not the easiest thing. Yeah.
Ali Cloud.
Yeah, it just depends
and
what market segment
Tencent.
you're targeting.
And Tencent, which is also very big.
Yeah. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for companies who want to focus in those sectors because the number of competitors is smaller. But,
so if I wanted to do this, since you've open sourced your modules, there's no impediment for me to just say, hey, I'm going to translate these into Azure and post them.
Except for that's the thing, is that there's not like a direct analog with all of these things. It would be more effort to try and translate them than just to build them from scratch. Plus, the way that the providers think about certain resources isn't going to be the same.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not a simple mechanical translation.
Yeah.
No, like even at the most basic level, like Azure has a thing called like a resource group. It does it, and then AWS has accounts, right? Organizations and accounts that are like structured that way. And resource groups, you can kind of just easily spin up and spin down and do a bunch of things with them. And they're all tied to a subscription ID, obviously, but they have like a logical layer and then that layer is different from VPC. It's different from like the networking separation that you can launch into it, and a bunch of things. And that's just like the first thing that you would probably tackle as you started to look at this. There's like a whole bunch of things out there for sure.
I've been following your collection of modules for a long time, because when modules became available and they were all disjointed, you were the only people who built modules that work with each other. And I was like, this is the solution. And I've so wanted to use them, except for we're moving off AWS. So yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. What I have said though is that if we were to work on some projects there, I'd probably seek out some more mainstream Terraform. Google modules is actually by Google. So AWS modules these are not by AWS. These are an independently run organization. But the Google modules are by Google. So for example, if we were going the Google route, we'd probably build Terraform root modules around these modules made by them. Now, in terms of Azure, I haven't dug into that.
I'll reveal a little bit about our needs. So we are on Tencent, we are on Alley, we are on GCP, AWS, and we'll probably be on whatever cloud gives us the cheapest bang for the buck next month. Right? And that was going to be Oracle for a while, but there was a lot of backlash against Oracle, despite the fact that Oracle is like a Terraform first cloud, which I really liked.
Yeah.
The only way you can deploy resources to Oracle Cloud is via Terraform.
That didn't impress anybody. We don't use Terraform at all, as far as I know. We've built a whole bunch of middle layer stuff, and we do have a big development team, large, thousands. But we're building all this proprietary stuff, which will never, ever leave the company, because it's not good enough, first of all. And they won't even share it with me, most of it. And I work there. You know what I mean? Like, I want to fix some of these things because it's atrocious, and I'm having trouble just getting the source code.
Yeah. Pick your battles. There's a lot of great opportunities out there. You don't have to, grind your knuckles working at a place that doesn't see things the way you would like to move things at all. So.
And that is definitely an option. I would love to talk to you about that after the podcast.
Anytime. So, well, everyone, we are at time. So I'd like to switch over here to some closing remarks. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please head over to youtube.com/cloudposse to subscribe. Helps us out a great deal. All these cool links and things that we share every week on Office Hours, we send those out also via our newsletter. So you can subscribe to that by going to newsletter.cloudposse.com. If you want to connect with me, I'm easily accessible. Find me on LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/in/Osterman. And if you're curious about Cloud Posse, just head over to cloudposse.com, learn more about what we do as a business, and book a session with me by going to cloudposse.com/quiz. Talk to you all next week. Same time, same place. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.